Alright, hello everybody, my name is Petr Zemek, also known as Servats, and today I would like to go over my git config. Here's the agenda for today. So first I would like to go over my shell configuration with relation to git. Then we'll take a look at some Vim plugins that I use that allow me to work with git more effectively. Number 3, we'll go over my global configuration options. So how I have my git set up. Number 4, I'm a huge fan of aliases as they make my life easier and allow me to be more efficient. So we'll take a look at them. And number 5, local configuration. If you share the same git config on multiple machines, you may want to have some custom changes on some of the machines. So this is what local configuration allows you to do. And last but not least, we'll take a look at some extensions that are not part of Git, but which are very helpful to me. So without further ado, let's start with the shell configuration. Before we start, I use Git from terminal, not from an IDE, well, unless you consider Vim to be an IDE. And I will definitely not go over the whole thing. I will just point out what I believe is worth checking out. Here's my bash RC. The first thing that I have set up is an alias for Git, as I use Git very often, so it has earned a special place among my one-letter aliases. So instead of writing Git, I can just write G, which, you can say that it only saves you 2 letters, but if you type it all the time, it can be a huge improvement combined with aliases. And also, you don't make so many typos like GTI or Yeet or G or whatever. You just type G and you get Git. Another thing is completion. Git completion. So for example, if you do get checkout and then press a tab, it will tell you to what you can check out, or which branches, which tags you can check out, which can be quite useful if you have many of them or you don't really remember all the names. And yeah, that's it. This line fixes the completion for the git command for my G alias, so G checkout works as well. And the last thing, even though I make fewer typos with just G, sometimes I write it as a capital G, or for example, GS is my alias for git status. So sometimes I mistype it as GS, and on most machines, when you type GS without this alias, it will launch Ghost script, which is really annoying. So whenever I type just GS, it will do what G space S would do. So that's also quite useful. Instead of trying to unlearn my habits, I just try to live with them. And so I remap things that I usually mistype to what would I expect them to do. So I think that's everything from my shell configuration. So let's move to Vim config or Vim plugins. I use 3 plugins. The first one is with Fugitive. Fugitive, that's that from Tim Pope. Basically, it allows you to run git commands within Vim, like committing, merging, pushing, pulling. I don't use any of that. I just use the terminal. But one thing that I do use is git blame. So let's open a file there's just a testing repo that I will use throughout the screencast. So we have something to work with. If you run git blame, it will show who has authored which line and also in which commit. So for example, if I'm wondering who made this line, then I can just open the commit and see what happened in there and what I have been doing in there. Or I can move to just show the tree, so what files were changed, or I can move to the parent commit and so on. So it's browsable, and I very much like it, because you can use it within Vim and you don't have to run just an arbitrary git blame, which is without colors and not really interactive. So that's one plugin. The other one is called GVVim. This one. It's a Git commit browser. If you are familiar with GitK, that's something similar, but with a GUI. And I pretty much like to stay in the terminal, so that's why I use gv.vim. So if you run it, it will show you the log, and you can open commits and go through them this way. It's very useful during code reviews, and if the pull request that you are reviewing is properly structured, meaning that you can review it from bottom to top, you can just go over each commit in separation and just, if everything is okay, move further and further. And if not, you can write a comment, for example, on GitHub or whatever system do you use for code reviews. And it works with Vim. So this is what I like. And the third plugin is called Vim Grepper. That's this one. It allows you to use your favorite grep tool in Vim. So it doesn't work only with git grep, but it also works with other greps like the Silver Searcher, egg rip grep, and so on. But when you are in a repo, you can quickly grep Thor things. So for example, if I want to look for status, it will open a quick fix window with all the occurrences of status. So I can open it, and and I can work with it, or I can open the other things, the other files. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. So you can grep inside Vim. And also, if you are not in a repo, you can use Silver Searcher, egg, grep, or whatever, so it works universally. But when you are in a repo, it's faster to use git grep, as it searches only in the tracked files. And I believe that's everything from my Vim plugins. Otherwise, I just use Vim and Git from the terminal. Now, let's move on to global configuration options. So here's my Git config. Of course, I have set up my name and email as everybody, so that's not interesting. Color output is very nice, as it gives you colored output, or in git log, git diff, and other parts of Git. So I highly suggest turn it on. It makes the output more visible or more readable, at least for me. Some people don't like colors, but I like them to some extent. As for git grep, I have set up custom colors so they match my system grep, which I have modified in my bash RC. So if I do grep for status, it looks like this. If I do git grep status, it looks similar. The colors are similar, which I quite like. And sometimes I use just git grep from the terminal, so the colors match. Let's skip aliases for now, and let's take a look here. This section makes Git a little less verbose. So instead of it outputting a lot of text, it will just output fewer lines of text. Make Git less verbose. Oh yeah, it's based on this blog post. So I suggest reading it for more details. I will just go through some of the things, so to give you a gist of what it does, or what you can configure. So for example, if you try to push your changes to the repo, to the remote, usually Git yells at you when there are when someone else has already committed something, and it spits a lot of text just to tell you that and what you should do. But if you set push non-fast forward to false, it will just show you a more terse output, which I like. So if you are a proficient Git user, you don't want to read all that help stuff. You just want to know what's wrong, and then of course I need to pull or rebase before I can push. Status hints for status. So this is the original status, and that's the status after disabling status hints. So it's clearer. Commit before merge, that's just one line difference, but even that may be worthwhile. Resolve conflict is for conflicts. Implicit identity is before, after. This is what I like. So if you check out a commit that you want to try something out in that commit, you know what you're doing, of course, obviously, if you are a proficient Git user. So instead of reading through all that things or stuff to see whether there is something that you haven't expected, it just tells you that you are now at a particular commit, and it's your job to move around and do whatever you want. So take a look at these options and set them however you like. I like the fact that Git is much less verbose. Now let's move to the core section. First, Git can tell you when there are some whitespace errors, and you can configure which whitespace errors you would like to be notified. So let's make a change in the README file. For example, here, add some trailing space, and if you run git-diff, it will, tell you that there are some whitespace there is some trailing whitespace at the end, so you can fix that. But in this example, I like to use my editor to always strip trailing whitespace to trim it. But some people don't do that, and so you can see this sometimes, and it's worth noticing. So take a look at the man pages to see all the options that you can set. Some of them are defaults. Maybe even this is the default. I'm not sure anymore. I've been using Git for a long time, and I think they have changed some of these options. They have definitely changed push default in 2.0, so some of the things may have changed as well. Use pager. This is what Git uses when the text doesn't fit a single screen. So here is, for example, what it does. I like to use less with these options, and to find out what they mean, you can use this great explain shell site. So you can just paste the command there, and it will parse it and tell you what it does. So, for example, -i, ignore case. So when searching, you can just type lowercase letters, and it will also show search through uppercase occurrences. It's quite handy. -f, if the output fits a single screen, you don't need less, or you don't need the pager So it will just print it without running the pager or showing the pager. Row control characters, that's useful if the tool that you are using less on, the text contains ANSI color escape sequences, so they show exactly as expected from the tool. So to keep colors. And what's interesting, yeah, this one. So if lines are longer than the number of columns you have in your terminal, it will just chop them, and you will see, yeah, like here, this continuation. So you know it's chopped. And set tab stops. I like to have 4 spaces as a tab width. So I set it to 4, and all tabs are shown as 4 spaces. So keep this side in mind. It's very useful. Well, of course, you can go through the man pages, but sometimes it's much quicker to just use this side. And use editor Vim, obviously, or you can just set up the editor environment variable. That's the same thing, but I like to be explicit. When diffing, it's useful to allow Git to detect renames and copy detections, so it can show you that this changed and it was down in the previous file, which was now renamed. And I have also bumped the rename limit, so it is able to go further into history. I have stumbled upon that in several occasions, so I have just bumped that in my global Git config. When fetching, I want it to always prune, which means that it will remove remote tracking branches which are no longer present in the remote. So, for example, if someone merges their branch and removes it from the remote, after git fetch, it will be also removed from your clone. So you don't have to get rid of all the stale remote tracking branches from your repo. Remote tracking branches are, in this case, it's just this one, and that's for origin master. So I don't have any other remote tracking branches here in my example, but just to give you an idea of what they are, if you are not sure. When pushing, this is, I believe, now the default behavior. Man git push. Is it here? It's probably there. Push default. Yeah, push default. And yeah, this mode became the default in Git 2.0. Yeah, so yeah, I like this one. And also, this is useful when working with submodules. And if you accidentally set the tip of a submodule to a commit that hasn't been pushed yet, other people won't be able to check it out, that commit. So before pushing, Git will verify that all the tips of submodules have been already pushed, and only then it will allow you to push. So when working with submodules, consider enabling this option. When rebasing, sometimes Git yells at you that rebasing would modify, or you have modified content. So obviously you want to stash it, but this allows you to do it automatically. And after the rebase, it will unstash. Automatically. Also, when working with submodules, you may want to have a submodule aware status. So git status will also show you the status of each submodule and whether it's changed or not. So when it's changed, for example, after you pull, you can use git submodule update to bring it up to date. And so you know in which status are your submodules. The used merge tool. I usually don't use a merge tool. I handle conflicts manually, but when I do, I like to use Vim diff, probably because I like to use Vim. That's not important. We'll talk about this later. And here are some options for extensions, and we'll talk about them also later. So that concludes section number 3, and let's move to my favorite one, aliases. My aliases are here. As you can see, I have fairly a lot of them. Just to give you a heads up, sometimes there are no mnemonics, and I have set the aliases as I saw fit or as I was used. So for example, AR for amending, for committing with amend. It may not be the best choice, but I'm used to it and I know what it means, so why not, right? You should figure out your own shortcuts or abbreviation and see what works for you and set it by yourself. Don't just blindly copy paste from other people's repos, as their intentions or their motivation behind an alias may be different. For me, it was probably because it is amending and it's resetting an author, but I'm not sure anymore. I just use it. So if you don't see the meaning of an alias, choose your own alias. What's important are the actions that these aliases can provide you. I will start with status, as you will see my status a lot, and you may wonder why my status looks the way it does. So if you just run git status, it will tell you the whole thing, so which changes were not staged for commit, which files are untracked, and you know, let's change some more lines. So let's remove that and that and that, and let's add the changes just to see how the status looks like. So that's the ordinary status. What I like is the short version without the interleaving text. So as you can see, it's quite similar. So for example, this shows that the file is untracked when there are question marks. This is just that the file has been modified but not staged. And if M is green, it means that the changes were staged. If a file is partially staged, you would see green M here and red M here. But it depends on your colors generally. But this is what I like, you know, this very short terse output. And I immediately can recognize what are in which status I am. And the other thing that I would like to include is branch. So I know on which branch I am, which branch it tracks, and also if there are some commits to see that I'm ahead. So let's commit that. And if I use my alias, I see that I'm ahead one commit. So yes, that's it. That's my git status. The next thing I would like to show you is committing. Let's bring the change back and remove the commit, and Let's add changelog. So, and now if you commit it, it will open the editor just like you are used to, but and you can type the commit message here, but we can do better than that. If you include verbose, it will also show you what changes you have done in that particular commit, or which changes are going to be committed. So this, apart from seeing what you are actually committing, it allows you to do completion. So for example, if you have added a new option and you are not sure what's the name of the options, like you can just use tab completion, as it will complete with text from the buffer. So that's very useful, as you can autocomplete things from the buffer. That's one thing. And the other thing is that sometimes you just want to commit everything. So I have an alias for that, CA. So if I run git CA, it commits all the changes that you have modified, files that have modified status or stage status, and that's it. So that's committing. Now let's go from the beginning and see what other things that I have here. So to add, I have an alias for A, which adds a particular file. If I want to add all files that I have modified, then I can use git AA, and it will add readme to the index as it hasn't been staged yet. And if I want to add all files, even untracked ones, I can use git AAA, and it will add all files. So the more A's, the more files it adds. Let's reset the files. Add patch, that's very, very useful. Several git commands have the patch flag or parameter, and it allows you to partially stage a file. So git will ask you, is this the change that you would like to stage? For example, no. Is this the change you would like to stage? Yes, it is. No, no. So as you can see here, the file was partially staged, and if you commit it, you can commit just a single line. This is very handy to do atomic commits, which are commits that change just a single thing, and that's a very important concept, at least from my point of view, and practice to create atomic commit messages or atomic commits, and that are easier to review, easier to revert. So I highly suggest to use that. Git patch, I have written a blog post on that. So it's called git patch mode all the way, and it explains the various commands from Git that have the patch flag. So you can check out with -p, which allows you to bring or get rid of changes that you don't want. Git stash, even git log, that's useful. Git log p, that's useful as it includes also changes that happened in each commit. So take a look at the blog post if you want. It describes all the commands that I was aware, well, at least at the time of writing, that have the patch parameter. Now, very often I realize that I haven't added all that I wanted into my last commit, or and so I can just run git AR, and it will automatically amend the commit. So create, it allows you to, so for example here, I could just run git AR, and it would add this change into the last commit, and allow me to change the commit message. So git commit with amending, I'm sure you are familiar with. Reset author also resets the author field to the current date and time and author, which I like to do. So that's it. So then I have few more aliases. So if I also before amending with git AR, I want to add all modified files into the index, so I can run git AAR in this case, or AAR, which adds everything to the index and adds it to the last commit. And if you are like me, you forget all the time something, and it's very useful to be able to change the last commit in a very simple way. Git authors, it just lists all the authors in the repo. So if you start working on a new repo that you are not familiar with, you can run git authors and it will show you the authors, so you know who's been messing up with the repo. Git blame, we have seen this in the Vim plugin. Git branch. Git branch. If you run it like this, it will tell you what are your local branches. If you add -v, it will also include the commits on which each of the branches are. And if you include another v, it will also show you which branch the local branch is tracking. So here in this example, it's origin master. So instead of writing all of that, I like to use an alias. Many times I want to see all the branches, so git bri lists also the remote tracking branches and on which commits they are. So I just usually run git bra and it tells me, it shows me all the branches and their status. We have already gone through committing. Clearing, when I'm not satisfied with changes, I can just run git clear and it will remove all the changes from the index. So git clear just removes everything that I've been working on. And it's useful if I see that this is going nowhere and I would like to, go back to the last commit. So I have an alias for that. That's just for cloning. Conflicts, it will tell you during merging, if you have conflicts, it will tell you which files have conflicts, which is handy if when merging there are a lot of changed files, like maybe 100 files, and it allows you to easily see which files you have to check and fix before you can finish the merge. So git conflicts. Checkout. Usually to create a new branch, I use git cob, which runs checkout branch. So let's check out branch named test, and here we go. COP, that's for the patch command. So I suggest reading the blog post to see what it does. Basically, it allows you to selectively get rid of changes. Like, for example, if we remove this and that, and now you realize that this change was unwanted, we can run git cop readme. We do not want to discard that, but yeah, we want to discard that. And now we see that we have only this change. Cherry picking, diffing. So GD is just a regular diff. Let's make some changes here. I don't know. That. let's add changelog. And if you run git diff, it will only tell you the diff from the modified files, not from the added changelog. And if I want to see, or if you want to see the changes that have been staged, you have to run diff with staged, or I just run git ds. And DA will give you all the changes. So from already staged parts of files and from modified files. Then fetching. This is redundant due to my automatical pruning, but I haven't used that configuration option, so I listed here. It's redundant, but if you don't like it to be global, you can just put it here in the alias. All fetches all the remotes, so that's useful when working with more than just one remote origin. Git grep, you have seen that. So instead of git grep status, I just run gg status. That's the same thing, just simpler. Ignored. I don't ignore anything in this repo, but if I were, it would tell me what are the ignored files for that repo. So sometimes you want to know what files you are ignoring that you have, and this will tell you that. Now, as for logging, I have several aliases, and also I have customized the format of the logging output. So this one, what it does, it shows me an overview of the last 20 commits that I have on the branch. And I can easily see when a change has been done, by whom, and what was the commit message. Also, I can see the status of several branches, or here's a tag. So that's the simplest case. In case I want to see all the commits, I can run git allow and browse through the commits. So that's that. Sometimes it's handy to just know what files were changed in a particular commit. So when searching for a commit that changed something and you know it was in a file ABC, then I can just run git lf and it will tell me what files were changed or deleted or added in a particular commit. So sometimes useful. Log with patching, we have already seen that. It not only includes information about the commit, but its contents. So what were the changes in that particular commit? So you can browse or you can search whatever your heart desires. LG and LGH, usually run git LGH. It will give you a graph overview with all the branches. So here we have a fairly linear history, but here we had a merge, here we had a merge, slightly less readable history, but I think you get the gist. It shows you a graphical representation of the history. Here are the aliases. You can copy them if you want. I have everything in my .files repo. .files here. You can see git's here, and that's that. And it should be fairly up to date, I believe. If not, I will update it, but it should be. And just copy paste it and change the colors if you don't like these colors. So this is just to give you an idea of how it works. Let's move to merging. when I merge something, I usually want it to be to have a merge commit, so I know that the history diverged, and I don't want to do a fast forward, as that puts everything on the branch, into the branch, and it makes the history looks linear. Sometimes that's what you want, but usually when merging a topic branch, it's useful to know that this was a topic branch and what bug was fixed on that topic branch. So I encourage you to give branches readable names, and then you can utilize merge with no fast forward to see what was the change. Yeah. So for example, here you can immediately see that all these changes were related to a new option, min notify delay. So that's useful. Otherwise, you would have all the changes on master and you don't know which change belongs to which feature. For aborting merge, that's useful. If you realize there's no way out, just abort the merge. Pushing git p. If you run it on a branch that's not remotely tracking any branch, Git will yell at you. So I have an alias for that, git push branch. What it will do, it will tell you what is the name of the branch. So it will parse it and it will push it just as you saw here to the origin remote and under this name. So it will automatically do what it tells you here. So git pb, right? No need to lose time with that. All right. If you want to delete a branch, so we are on master and we want to remove the test branch and we want to get rid of both our local branch and the remote tracking branch, I can run git delete branch test and it deletes the test branch. Let's see. For pulling, I use an extension called getup, but in case you would like to use just pull, which I sometimes do, for example, when the extension is not available on the system. When rebasing during a pull, I want to preserve merges, so it doesn't mess with the merge commits, which is useful when, for example, you have merged a branch into your branch and then doing rebase. It's useful or wanted behavior to preserve the merge commits. Otherwise, Git will just linearize them and you won't see any merge commits. Auto stashing, if there are files with conflicting changes. Stat, this will give you an overview of what files were changed since your state. So after you pull, you see the changed files, and also automatical pruning, but that can be fixed by the configuration flag that I have shown you earlier. For rebase, git rb, it will also rebase merges, which is what you want. So if you have lost your merge commits, this is what you want, rebase merges. For aborting during a merge, for continuing during rebase for continuing during rebase, and this is for an interactive rebasing. If you are not familiar with it, it's quite handy. So, for example, let me just do commit 1, commit 2, and commit 3, and we can see that we have 3 commits. And if you run git rebase, we can get that commit, and interactive rebase will pop up an editor, and you can play with your commits. So if you want, you can delete a commit, or you may want to reorder them if the other order makes more sense. Or maybe you want to, put changes from this commit into this one, so that's called fixup. Or you can reward a commit if you decide that commit 3 is not a good commit message. It's not. You shouldn't do that. And you can do various other things which are helpfully listed here. You can just use the first letters, like F is for fixup, or R is for reward, whatever you want. So in Git, in Vim, it's quite easy to do changes. So that's interactive rebasing. Very useful thing to know, but before you do anything, you want to make sure that nobody depends on the commits that you are rebasing, as it changes history. So if you have already pushed that changes, please be extra cautious when doing interactive rebasing. And there are many useful tutorials. I didn't want to get lost in details, and what I wanted to say is that I have an alias for interactive rebasing, as I use it all the time. So that's that. Status we have already seen. When working with submodules, it can be handy to have some aliases, as git submodule is a mouthful. So git SMS, it gives you a recursive status for submodules. The most useful alias is this one, as what it does, it updates the commits of each submodule, for example, after you pull. If the repos or the submodules haven't been initialized yet, it will initialize them, and it will do everything recursively in case you have nested submodules. So git SMU. So I usually git pull and run git SMU, and it will update my submodules. Then I have several aliases for stashing. So let's reset it and get rid of the commits. And if you have done some changes, and yeah, that's that. So we can stash the changes. I wonder why it has run that. Well, as I have an alias for that. It's strange, it seems like I have lost the alias. Well, I think I have lost all my aliases, I'm not sure what I've done. And anyway, let's do it this way. And we're back. Sorry for that. So, we may want to stash that. And if you stash it, it will be put on a stash. So here's my stash. I can, pop it back. So I have my change here. And I can see the list of all the commits that I have stashed. Or I can show you, I can see the contents of a stash. So that's for stashing, and if you use it all the time, it's quite handy to have aliases. If I want to see the contents of the last commit, I use git show. button alias with that, so that's an ordinary output. If you include format fuller, it will also tell you who is the committer and what's the commit date. I'm not sure if there are more changes, but it's a fuller format. And then if you include show signature, it will also tell you who has signed each commit and if you trust the signature and all that jazz. So instead of writing all of that, I can just run GSW and I get that. If I want to see the files that were changed in the last commit, I run git sf, or I can run git lf, but sometimes I only care about the last commit, so that's sf. Then there is an alias for syncing a fork. So for example, when on GitHub I fork a repo, what I usually do is set up an upstream remote, and I set it to the upstream repo from which I have created the fork. And if I want to get my fork up to date, I run this just git sync fork, and it will fetch the upstream remote. Then it will get the name of the branches I'm currently on, which can be master. It will rebase upstream master with my branch, and it will push the changes. So that's for quickly getting your fork up to date, instead of doing this dance all the time and figuring out what's the name of the branch, the upstream repo, and so on. Git tags, it will just list the tags and include the first line of annotation of each commit into the output. Let's skip that, not important. If you want to see what you have done today, you can run git today. I occasionally use it when working on a repo to see what I've done, but no biggie. We'll see that later. Undo, I have already done that. It will just get rid of the last commit, but keep the changes from it in there. So for example, if we drop this, I don't know, doesn't matter. Let's commit. And if you want to get rid of that commit, but you don't want to lose the content, git undo, and you get it here. Sorry, I think I'm too quick sometimes. So let's undo and git work in progress. If I need to quickly change branches, or just push it and work on it from other location, I can just run let's create a branch, run git whip, and it will create a commit with everything you've been working on. And I can then just run git undo, and it will give me my changes back, and I can create a more reasonable commit. And when thinking about it, I think that's it from aliases. So let's move on. Local configuration. Here you can specify a path to a local config and include it when it exists. So I work with Git on a lot of machines, and on each of these machines I have the same global Git config, but on some machines I want to use a local configuration that overrides some of the changes. So git config local. This is my local git config here. So I have set up a signing key, a GPG signing key, and I have enabled signing. So on this machine, I'm signing with this signing key. But at work, I might use a different signing key and so on. So this is the reason why a local configuration is useful. to share configuration files and then modify them only on certain machines that need to have specific config. Oh, well, that was quick, but that's what it does. And let's move to extensions, which will conclude our journey through my git config. So I use two extensions, git edit index and git up. Let's start with git up. Git up, that's this one. As you can immediately see, it's not maintained anymore. I've been using it for a while, and the author has given up, as they believe that git pull rebase autostash does the same thing since git 2.9. It doesn't do the same thing exactly, only basically. So if you want, you can use that. But what I like about git up, when compared to git pull, is that there are four things. Git up will update all the branches, not just the branch you are currently on. So you don't have to update all the branches manually. Second, git up shows you a list of new commits on each locally tracked branch after it finishes. So you can see not only the stat, like which files were changed, but which commits are new, which is useful. Then git up automatically stashes local changes before pulling new commits, and it does that without producing the messages that autostash produces, like stashing changes and unstashing changes. So the output is quite more clear than from git pull. And number four, git up rebases upstream changes instead of merging them, which is what you mostly, well, at least I most likely want to do. So that's for rebase. And I use it. It works just fine. It's been working fine for many years. And there's a Python version by git up. Let's try to, it's my alias, by git up. Yeah, 26, that's that. It should be a replacement that's maintained for git up, and I need to take a look at that. It might be what I want. It also has some newer configuration options to git pull, and it seems maintainable. Yeah, it's supposed to be a drop-in replacement from git up, so you might as well check that instead of git up. So that's the first thing. The second extension is git edit index. Edit index git. Yeah, I have actually written this one. Let's move here, as I believe it's very useful, at least to me, maybe also useful to you. What it allows you to work with this pretty much inside your editor. So if we touch, I don't know, test.py, test2.py, we can also make some changes here. Let's prepare an environment so we can see what git edit index looks like. So I have an alias for that, and if I run git edit index, it will open Vim, and I can do staging, unstaging, whatever I want directly from Vim. So if I want to stage test2, I can just go here, and I have staged test2. If I want to get rid of these changes in the README, I can just delete the line, and that's that. So this is useful in cases you have several changes or you have changes in deeply nested directories. And so instead of git add and then use your mouse to just copy and paste it, or use tmax to copy and paste it, you can as well, you can as well use your editor. It's very similar to interactive rebasing in the way that it opens an editor to do things. And I think that's it. That's no more to it. If you want to use it, there are instructions how to install it, how to use it. There is one configuration options. There are some limitations with open issues. It basically does what I need for it. Some things aren't handled, like partially staged files or files having merge conflicts. But if that's the case, I just do it manually. I don't spend my whole day working with conflicts. So for the ordinary case, it's very useful and I can be quite proficient with it. And that's why I like it. So we have reached the end. I don't think I have anything more for you. So I would like to thank you for all of you who have watched it until the end. And if you know about any other interesting options or aliases, please share them in a comment. I like to, improve my Git config or my Git knowledge in general. So whatever you find useful, I might also find useful. So feel free to share it. And if there was anything confusing that I have said or shown, also please let me know, and I can try to explain it better next time or in the comment. Or yeah. So that's it. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.